Welcome to Cabinet Procurement Insourcing Committee. Good afternoon. This is an in-person meeting which will be live streamed for public viewing, and a record of the decisions will be taken will be published after the meeting. Can I start off with the first item on the agenda? The committee is required to note the confirmed appointment of Councillor Chapman to the position of Chair of the Cabinet Insourcing and Procurement Committee for the municipal year 2025 to 2026.
Noted. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I extend my welcome to you as well. There's a lot of people here today with quite a big agenda. Can I suggest, rather than doing a big round of introductions, if people say who they are when they first speak and we know where they're from. I'm Councillor Rob Chapman, I'm the Chair of the committee. Okay, so apologies for absence with lateness from Councillor Williams. Okay, does any member have an interest to declare?
No, Chair.
No. No items of urgent business. If we need to conduct business in private, and there are some private items on the appendices on the agenda, we will then at that point make an appropriate declaration to ask members of the public and press to leave.
Chair,
sorry?
There's
a whole report.
Yes.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll get that. So we'll do that at some. We will have to do that at some point in the meeting. No declarations. How many procurement board minutes for noting? So can we vote the minutes to the procurement board?
Noted.
Okay.
Can we agree the unrestricted minutes for the TV meeting on the 29th of April? I won't go through them, but obviously if anyone's got an issue, do raise it.
Agreed.
Please. Okay. And we've got an action tracker which has been circulated separately. I don't propose to go through that in detail now. There's a number of outstanding items which we are chasing to be presented to the September meeting. Has anyone else got anything they wish to raise? Councillor Kennedy.
Could we just ask where we're being told something is on track? Oh, does it say briefing? I thought I saw one that didn't say when. Yes, I did. One that didn't tell us when the briefing note was due for. So the last one. Oh, it's completed and there's a link. It may have been updated since I last looked. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, well, we can check that anyway, and we'll come back to it next month. It's not clear. My understanding is that yeah, we should receive the appropriate outstanding. It's our next meeting. Okay, then. So we start with the SEND report. Post-16 supported internship contract. I think Dorothy Hodge is joining us to present that. Is that right? No, I do see other education colleagues here. Hello?
Hello, yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, if you'd like to present the report then, please.
Hi there, yeah, and I'm stepping in for Irene Wood, who's the service lead, who's
sorry, yeah, your routine is going to try and. Is it there? You do it on the one.
You can do it on the.
Keep going. Try again.
Keep going.
Yeah.
More
back there.
Try again.
Okay.
Dorothy, do you want to?
Yeah. Yes, so we are looking for the approval to award this framework for.
But also started the wrong order. Since you started, I suggest you continue. I skipped over item 10.
No worries. I know. Lucky me.
To Maria, we'll come back to you. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, Maria. So we're looking to award this framework of 3 providers who will offer a choice of supported internship opportunities for our young people with special educational needs and education, health and care plans. We had a previous framework in place with one provider, which was successful. And that provider actually has bid again and has been successful again. But we wanted to broaden the offer of supported internships that were available to young people in the borough, so that they had a wider choice of vocational options. we have 3 suppliers. We've got a range of work sectors that they can offer the internship in. Through an internship, the young person has a work placement, a job coach and education. And this framework will sit alongside the council's own in-house supported internship programme, which is run by the supported employment team, and offers 2 other options, which involve supported internships either within Homerton Hospital, a somewhat limited number of placements there that Homerton Hospital has put a cap on that, and also a range of placements within the local authority. And why we want to do this is to broaden that range of options, and because this is a really important step towards young people gaining sustained employment. And actually, we've got a key performance indicator there, which is that 60% of interns will move into paid sustainable employment. And for those that don't access that, we've built into the specification ongoing training and support for a minimum of 9 months after they complete the supported internship.
I'm sorry, I'll just present about the procurement.
So you can say who you are. And
Yeah, my name's Jackie Bailey, Senior Category Manager for Education, and I support procurement. So as Doc mentioned, the existing framework comes to an end in August. So this framework, if approved, will start in October. And we have 3 appointable providers that went through evaluation and are deemed appointable. To make it more competitive, we issued a PIN notice in January now, and the procurement went out in February. We had 5 submissions, which we were really pleased about because that was more competitive than last time. And 3 of them were assessed as suitable to be evaluated in full. And all of the 3 providers met the quality thresholds in terms of sufficient quality. The evaluation also included an evaluation of social value and sustainability. We providers have offered various social value and sustainability objectives as well, committed to that.
okay, any questions or comments on the report? Councillor Kennedy?
I should probably know the answer to this, but what kind of support do we offer within this contract to those young people once they cease to fit the 16 to 24 category? So what help is there about ongoing support to help them try and source employment for the rest of their adult lives?
So my understanding is that this is a stepping stone. So at the end of the placement, they'll either progress onto employment or just be more better prepared for the workplace.
Right.
That answers your question.
Can I just ask a follow-up on that? So then, does this service then pass them on to Hackney Works with a sort of, do they have a dedicated support person within Hackney Works at the end of this?
So if they haven't been able to successfully move into sustained employment after the supported internship, as I said, they have 9 months of ongoing support from a job coach, so that extends beyond. And what we can do is we can make sure that that job coach is linking them with any employment opportunities, any employment support that's available within the borough that's a broader offer. So as this service will be overseen by the post-16 EHCP lead and their team, service lead and their team, they will be able to link them into the broader offer and help with that signposting. They'll be meeting regularly with the providers that are offering the supported internship to pick up on that support that's available for young people that fall outside that 60%.
Just one more question.
Yes, of course.
To what extent are we able to offer wider opportunities to these young people beyond? I know that the internships have tended to be in a couple of different council departments, haven't they? To what extent are we able to expand that more broadly, or has this particular selected provider been able to offer a broader set of options?
As opposed to the existing framework where we only had one provider, this will have 3 providers. So yeah, the offer will be much broader.
Yeah, and we've got both the provider that was the existing provider that we had, which was a really a quality provider that had a range of options, but we've now brought on board 2 others. One that's fairly new to the market and wants to be based locally and develop options locally, which is good. One of them is a large, I think it's a national charity actually, that has delivered this model in many other cities around the country. And they've got some really good links with employers that are national employers as well. So what we're trying to do through this is expand from a situation where we had 2 supported internship offers, our in-house one with the hospital and local authority and the one on the framework. We're now going to be moving that to the 3 on the framework plus the council's offer. So we're broadening that out and hopefully enabling young people to access a wider range of opportunities, and not just in Hackney but across the city.
Okay. I was going to just ask about insourcing. I think you may have partially addressed it in your last answer, actually, because we're always a bit disappointed when we can't insource things, as you can tell from the title of the committee. You know, when we read this, it looked like a little bit like there was a skills. Were we reading this? We're wrong in reading this as though there's a little bit of a skills mismatch in the council, and that was the reason we couldn't insource it, or was there something deeper? You know.
I think that we've got a really good offer internally, and although we've sometimes had some challenges around ensuring that works with our hospital link, we have really been able to embed that relationship now. So we've got a good offer, which is in Homerton, and also a range of departments within the local authority which provide a range of options. However, those are only kind of 2 vocational areas that young people can access. So we are still going to be making sure that our in-house offer is shared with and promoted to young people. But one thing that Anaya in the service lead, getting feedback from young people who've been on the programme before, was clear about, is that we want to match placements to young people's vocational interests. And not all will want to work within a local authority office setting or within the hospital. And also, we want to have more flexibility about when young people can come onto the programme, so they can come on partway through the year, which isn't always the case with our in-house programme. And also that they can access that programme part-time if they need to meet their special educational needs. So having this framework, it doesn't commit us, but what it does is it means that we have a wider range of options that can sit alongside our core local authority supported internship offer, which means that young people have a choice.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from the members of the committee? Okay, can we then move to the recommendation, which is to appoint the 3 suppliers as set out in 3.1 on the report?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, thank you very much, and thanks to the officers for the work on and presenting to the committee today. Thank you. So, with apologies, if I can move back to item 10, commissioning children's homes in Hackney. Right. The big one, and ask, I think, Maria Zavskaya to introduce it, please.
Yeah, Maria, just go for it.
Sorry?
I'm Jackie Burke. I'm the group director.
Oh, Jackie, welcome.
Maria, just to go for it.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. Good afternoon, Cabinet. My name is Maria Zazovskaya, and I am the Senior Commissioning Manager for Children and Families. I'm here to introduce the business case for Hackney's Children's Homes, which outlines a proposal to commission a partner provider to operate 2 new children's homes from council-owned buildings. The aim is to address the presenting need for suitable high-quality accommodation for children looked after in Hackney, ensuring that they can remain close to their communities, support network and services, which we strongly believe will lead to better outcomes for our children. The council currently faces challenges with high costs and limited availability of high-quality children's homes in Hackney and neighbouring boroughs, often resulting children having to live far from home. There are currently only 2 children's homes in the borough, both run by a private provider. This proposal, with an estimated maximum total cost of 17.86 million over 7 years, seeks to create 6 new children's homes places in Hackney. I ask Cabinet to note that we're taking a unique approach to commissioning a partner provider who will be fully integrated into the Children and Families Service and work seamlessly in line with our systemic trauma-informed and anti-racist practice model. The children who will be living here are those that we have identified with the highest level of need, often that require bespoke arrangements. And these are the children that we struggle to find homes for and that often end up living at a distance. Whilst we thoroughly considered insourcing the provision, it was deemed less favourable at this time due to financial, regulatory and staffing risks. And there's a detailed assessment and analysis in the exempt appendix that also addresses our plans to revisit this in the near future. The preferred option is to commission an external provider, allowing the council to leverage existing expertise and secure Ofsted registration efficiently, whilst maintaining influence over the quality of care through robust contract management. The report also details extensive consultations undertaken with care experienced young people, internal stakeholders, external providers, highlighting their desire for personalised spaces, diverse staff and proximity to friends, family and their community. The key benefits of this approach include improved stability of care arrangements, better educational outcomes, reduced risk of exploitation and enhanced emotional well-being for our children. This initiative also aims to generate local employment, training opportunities, reduce social worker travel costs and embed social value principles, including anti-racism within the service. The procurement will follow a competitive, flexible route under the Procurement Act with a strong emphasis on quality, social value and financial viability. The council anticipates significant cost avoidance detailed in Exempt Appendix 5 by securing more competitive rates through a block contract compared to the current reliance on spot purchasing. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Councillor Kennedy?
Thank you. Could I ask you just to say a little bit more about what distinguishes the idea of a partner provider from just straight going out and doing a commissioning and just commissioning someone to do it? What are those specific things that we could point to and go, this is what makes it different and a much closer relationship?
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. So when we say partner provider, what we really want to do is have a different commissioning relationship. We don't want to be a local authority purchaser and a private provider delivering the service that, you know, although that is what it'll be. The main differences is that we want to fully kind of absorb the provider and see themselves delivering the service as our own in-house provision. So for example, our clinical team are offering clinical supervision as part of the offer to the successful provider when we go out to tender, which will help unite the service because it will be the same clinicians that are offering support for our young people and offering consultations for our social workers. This approach has been tried by several local authorities across London and wider and has been really well received by the market. We're going to share our training and development opportunities with the provider. We want them to be co-located in our children and family service. We want them in our team meetings and our all service meetings, discussing our children every step of the way and working really in partnership so that we have a better chance of delivering those best outcomes, and we will be as invested as they will be to making sure that our children receive the best level of care.
Okay,
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
any further questions or comments from?
No, just really positive
Comments, well
that we are doing
Yeah.
this, you know. And as it says in the report, many decades since we've run the children's home before, so this is an excellent bit of insourcing.
Great. Okay. Yeah, but thank you very much for the report. Obviously, yeah, it's a huge, important initiative for the council, and it's really good to see that we're going forward with doing this ourselves. I've had lots of conversations about insourcing, and it's very comprehensively dealt with in the report. So I won't ask any now, but you know, it's a really, really important proposal, and we welcome it. Thank you for everyone for all the work they put into it to get us to here. So if there are no further questions, if we could move to the recommendations in item 3 to basically agree the contracts.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Sorry?
Business case.
Yeah, business case. Yeah, it's business case stage, as the councillor Kennedy has just pointed out. If we can then go to item 12, public sector decarbonisation scheme contract award, and I think Jeremy Martin has joined. Yes, he's going to present this.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Chairman. This paper is to seek approval to award a contract to Asset Plus Energy Performance Limited at a value of 10.3 million. The project will be to deliver decarbonisation heat in 9 schools, saving about 659 tonnes of carbon by displacing 3.9 million kilowatt hours of gas with 0.9 million kilowatt hours of electricity. The contract would be funded by 6.6 million grant, which Cabinet accepted in April, and 3.9 million capital from within the capital programme. And it builds on the previous awards of contract PSCS 3B and 3C, which are mid-delivery. One aspect I want to point out, and I'm trying to keep this brief because I know the agenda is really pressured. In last year's meeting, when we asked to approve the PSCS 3C project, the chairman commented that we often present details or proposals for social value, but you never get any feedback on what's actually been achieved. So since we were coming back with another project that built on this, I sought to build that in. So I would draw your attention to paragraph 8.5 in social value benefits, where we've put together a table of the social value benefits promised in previous phases, where we're at with the delivery, and the new promises that have been made. I was therefore going to turn that over to questions rather than carry on, recognising that time is short this afternoon.
Thank you, David. Then any questions or comments from members?
The extra feedback is much appreciated.
Yes.
And answers some of our concerns about the nature of these benefits that are often widely promised in cases that come to us, and contract awards that come to us, but we rarely see them actually a report that comes back. So that's really useful. Thank you, Chair.
I would agree. Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. I really appreciate it. Okay. Yeah, another important project. So if there are no further questions or comments, can we move to the recommendations in item 3, or was it 3, to note our own decision, it says here, and award the 2-year contracts to deliver the public sector carbonisation scheme. So if you'll agree the recommendations as set out, note item 1 and agree item 2.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. So then if we can move to, thank you very much, the officers.
Thanks
If
very
you can
much.
move to item 13, the doctor's cycle hire contract award, and ask, I think, Constance McCall.
Yes.
Okay, pleased to be, yeah, welcome to the committee.
Yeah, Constance McCall from Hackney's agency team. So firstly, I want to thank the committee for reviewing the report today, and also thanks to Rebecca Howarth in the transport team, who's actually done all of the thorough and amazing work to get us to this point and going through the procurement process. So following an open tender procedure which concluded in May this year, this report requests the approval to enter into concession contracts with 2 suppliers to deliver Hackney's dockless cycle hire service for a maximum of 5 years, which would be 3 years with an option to extend 1+1. 5 suppliers submitted compliant bids, and I think it's fair to say that dockless cycle hire across London undeniably causes a significant shift in how people move around the capital and the borough. And in designing this procurement specification, with valued input from members, often been acutely aware of both the challenges caused by the misuse of cycle hire bikes, but also the huge social benefits and large-scale shifts to low carbon and active travel. So the main reason, obviously, why this service is being forward. And on that, I think that this procurement has been an amazing opportunity for Hackney to further its leading role in setting the high standards for operating a dockless cycle hire scheme, both in Hackney but also across London. So really setting out those standards. So specifically, just a few points I want to pick out. This new contract will deliver improved parking compliance. So again, all journeys must begin and end designated cycle hire bays, and operators are committed to new technology, enhancing GPS and providing in-app real-time help for people to find those bays. Affordable travel. So another really important part and outcome of this procurement. Hackney residents can travel anywhere within the borough for a fixed price of £1.75, same as a bus fare, and that's for the entire duration of the contract. And also by recommending 2 suppliers, we're introducing an element of competition, which we hope will continue to drive the standards across and provide great consumer choice. And another point I think is around better cycling behaviour. So significantly more residents will have access to cycle training. And I think touching on the point we've heard here about social value and the feedback that we've got. So from our existing contract, we've been able to leverage money to train 750 adults this year. And it's through those same ideas and processes that we're going to be able to expand that significantly over the duration of the contract and really help train cyclists in Hackney to ride better, and also get introduced to cycling. And there'll be more bike options. I think this is a really new space here. We're going to be seeing cargo bikes, larger bikes, smaller bikes, bikes with different child seats. So really expanding the option of cycle hire for more and more people across different uses to get on a bike. And then I think really importantly, and again, highlighting the power of Hackney's ability to use its procurement power with more equitable revenue share. So now we're using procurement to ensure that more of the revenue generated in Hackney is going to be going towards Hackney-based transport.
Thank you. Did you want to add something?
I just wanted to add something, yeah, just a little bit, just to say, I think it's been a huge increase that we've seen in dockless bikes, and I don't think at the point where the current transport strategy started, I don't think any of us could possibly foresee that as such a big change in transport. And that has brought with it lots of people. I think there are about 5 million journeys a year to and from Hackney. Lots of people shifting from minicabs, for example, to bikes. That's great. The other side of it is we do see many residents say these things are a menace. People who ride them are a menace. Company don't take responsibility. So as part of this procurement, we have, the team have carried out a really full review of the contract terms that they're operating under, and also what our minimum requirements were of anybody bidding. And I think this procurement exercise has been very thorough in looking at the aspects that people have fed back to us on to say they're most concerned about. And that low fare is a great example of that. But so are the minimum standards and KPIs for enforcement, for geofencing the bike so they can only park in the right places, and also that profit share will make a big difference to our ability as a council to carry out our own enforcement action if we think that they're not keeping up their end of the bargain. So I think this is quite a shift in the way that we Hackney manage our dockless bikes, now that we know how good they can be and also the difference.
Thank you. Good. Yeah, another exciting project. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Kennedy.
Sorry if I missed it. Is that profit share ring fenced for enforcement?
To transport, isn't it?
No, it's not. There are fixed costs in the contract that are in the paper that are ring fenced to specific mitigations. Sorry, Tyler Linton, Assistant Director for Street Safety. And those are to reflect what we think are the bare minimum mitigations required for a top rated safe scheme. We also expect that some of the unring fenced variable revenue share will go towards mitigating the sort of variable impact of the scheme. The better the scheme does, more revenue share we'll see. We'll expect to keep some of that, but that will go through the council's normal financial procedures for making a business case to bid on and get that revenue assigned to projects. So there'll be a further scrutiny. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. Oh, Councillor Williams, sorry.
That is good to see. Thank you for the report. It's good to see that there'll be a wider variety of made available. I wonder whether there'll be anything in future contracts for elderly residents or resident hand cycle bikes, given what Councillor Young has said, so that there's an even wider variety of residents who can take advantage of dockless cycles. And I come to that point with my hat as lead member for equalities, and it'd be really good to see an even broader reach out there for residents.
So I can just a small word on that. So I think it's interesting to see, even within the fleet that will be introduced over the contract period, that will be able to be hired as per any other bike, I think is going to have a much broader level of access, because there'll be lighter vehicles, and then there may even be some trikes in there, but with both of the bidders who've been successful today have already got relationships with organisations like Wheels for Wellbeing. So although they won't be necessarily directly accessing those services, they are promoting those services, and there's some funding that goes through to make sure that there is more access to cycling for a wider audience.
Thank you.
Okay. Sure. That's fine, isn't it? Okay, well, thank you very much. Another exciting project. So, can we, if there are no further questions or comments, can we move to the recommendations on the item? There was item 3. Which is to approve the supplier rounds, the two suppliers for the providers. So can we set out?
Yeah,
okay.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Best wishes with the implementation of the project. So then, if we could move to item 14, which is the property asset management, mechanical and electrical contractual requirements.
Hello, can you all hear me? Sorry, I'm in the HSC office. Yes, that's Denise Hill. It is in
okay, well, introduce the report then. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. So, I'll just start off by saying thank you for allowing me to present this business case to the board today. So the purpose of this business case is to deliver a new procurement strategic approach to how we deliver existing M&E services, bar one, which is a new element for us, which is solar panels. It consists of 4 main elements. One, the first element is actually the framework itself, which consists of 9 lots. 2 are electrical and 7 are mechanical. Within that lot, within the lot of the framework, there is one particular element, particularly, or maybe 2, whereby we will provide support to the DLO as backup contractors. I would like to stress that having these lots in here is not taking away any work from the DLO itself. This is simply to allow the DLO to grow and also to allow backup to the DLO as and when there are either shortage of skill or shortage of resources. So, and no movement to using these contractors will result in work being taken away from the DLO unless they have informed us that they need that additional support. So I just want to emphasize that because I know that's important in terms of this committee. So so I should continue. So the other elements includes communal ventilation, air source heat pumps, heat recovery units, also includes wet risers, dry risers and so forth. There's a list of those elements on page 16 of the lots itself. And as I said, the purpose of this is to build resistance, build, I suppose, a better, efficient process in terms of how we deliver such services in the future. We want to make sure that we maintain good compliance as per our responsibility. We also want to make sure that we're able to deliver on any capital works in the future if deemed necessary. I want to emphasize at this point as well that we fully understand about budget restraints. So therefore, what we want to also be able to make sure that any capital works that will be delivered under this framework will have to first be approved by our finance team as well as the Housing Investment Board. So that is the first element of this business case, and it is a new approach to how we deliver these works, because in the past we would have normally either temporary contracts or we are facing a dilemma where we've got several contractors maybe expiring at the same time. The whole purpose of this framework is to bring it all together, allow us to continue with work on a long-term basis and not constantly firefighting in terms of procurement. Procurement, as you probably realise, does take a long time. So the whole purpose of this approach is to make sure that we build in better value for money, better contractual connections as well, and also make sure that we can do Section 20 and we can bring that money and finance back into the council. The second element to this is about the procurement of 3 separate specialist contracts: door entry, lighting protection and TV aerials. This will be based on a 5-year, it's 3 + 1 + 2 contract approach, making sure that it's in line to a certain extent with the M&E framework, with the opportunity that in year 4 of that framework, we may be able to include those 3 contracts into that contract before they, under that framework, before they expire. So that's the purpose of making it that particular duration. The third element is that we currently have 2 temporary we currently have 2 contracts, door entry and TV aerials, where in order to fill the gap while we complete this M&E framework, we want to be able to put in a 12-month contract on a temporary basis strictly to do with repairs and maintenance at this stage. That gives us a bit of time in order to make sure this framework is in place, but also more importantly to make sure the 3 main direct contracts for the specialist contracts are in place, and we can continue delivering services as we would like. The fourth part is that obviously under the framework there are going to be specialist contracts, specialist disciplines that we ourselves don't have the skill in-house to do. So my proposal, part of this business case, is to therefore appoint a consultants for the communal ventilation, for heat recovery units and for wet risers that will help us, support us in terms of helping drafting the specification and schedule rates, as well as provide, potentially sit on the evaluation panel when we are assessing these contracts. Now, I'll just take one step back, and I know time is very tight, but I just want to get this point across, is that the framework itself, we've put down for its potentially a framework is 4 years, but the reason why we've put in there 4 years plus 1 year plus 2 years and a maximum of 6 years is because at this stage, this early stage, we want to be able to build in the flexibility so that if, for example, we have justification to extend that framework, it's already been transparent upfront at the tender stage and at the transparency stage. So that is the reason why we've mentioned it here as it is, but we are fully aware that a framework is typically 4 years. And if we cannot provide the justification at the time in the 4th year, then it will simply be 4 years. That's what that will be. The final part of this element is also to seek approval for the contractor once we have done the procurement, that the contract award is delegated to our group director. This way we can then move ahead, forge ahead and get these contracts in place as quickly as possible. I want to also add, and just in case you're not aware, and no, you probably are aware, but just in case, just to make sure that you fully understand that the purpose of this framework and the importance of this framework is a new approach in Hackney. What we're going to do is make sure that this framework is also opened up to other members or other departments within the council, so that again it would allow us for them to use what we have assessed in terms of value for money and so forth. So we're talking about Regen team, for example, their main contractor could be using one of our contractors as a subcontractor. Also, if this framework works, this potentially could open this up to other councils to also use this framework, where we can now bring in money back into the council. Now, just to emphasise, and I'm wrapping up very quickly now, the framework itself aim is to appoint 3 contractors under each lot. The highest ranked contractor will be awarded repairs and maintenance, and any capital works that we deem necessary will run through a mini competition between the 3 contractors afterwards. But as I've emphasised, no capital works will be awarded unless it has been approved by Finance first and it has been approved under the Housing Investment Board. Part of that as well is that this particular framework will have a 15%, which includes sustainability and social value. The emphasis of this is to try to make sure that local residents are being supported and have access to opportunities of employment or training, etc. So we're going to make sure that when we build in social value, that is what it's going to contain. Also, sustainability. I mentioned there that one of our lots is air source heat pumps and heat recovery units. This is new technology. So therefore, what we want to make sure is that we are prepared to be able to maintain these type of systems. Hence, part of that initiative will also include training for staff, not only my own team as the M&E team, but also the DLO. Again, pushing for this growth for the DLO. That is the purpose of where we're going. Now, I'm going to be a bit cheeky here because I've just heard, whereby you were asked about social value and not having anything back, not receiving anything back. Now, some of you might remember I came here many moons ago to present the 3 electrical contractors. We're now on the verge of receiving the first social value reports from these 3 contractors of the commitments of what they have delivered so far on their contracts. So this is my way of telling you that we've taken this very seriously and we are monitoring that. The performance is very key to us, and hence why we have robust KPIs where contractors will not be given work or not guaranteed any work unless they can demonstrate to us that they meet our expectation and also support and deliver what our residents are expecting. Overall, I'll just add one more thing. Overall, the framework itself is 80 million. Which includes consultation, consultants' fees, as well as legal and what we believe to be estimated works in relation to the lots that are there. We have the 3 main contracts, specialist contracts, are around I think almost 10 million, and then we've got 1.4 million for the temporary contracts as well, and 60k for the consultancy. I'm sorry, it's a lot of information that I've passed on there, but it is a big business case, and I'm excited the fact that we've come this far. So I'm now open to any questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And it's a very comprehensive introduction, which I think has answered quite a number of the points I was going to put, but there will be others, I'm sure. Any questions? Councillor Young and then Councillor
So
Kennedy.
forgive me because I don't now have the full report in front of me, so this may be in there. What do you think that the sort of the framing of this framework, or the sort of terms of this framework, are they likely to increase or reduce the chances of smaller contractors getting onto that framework?
No, I don't believe it will, because we are aiming for these small, medium enterprise contractors to take on board. That's why we're having 3 contractors as a minimum allotted on this framework in the first place. We want them to join. We were not interested in those big contractors because they're too far away, they're too distant, and they don't care enough. So,
and just to follow up to that, and one of the things that we often see is that contractors subcontracts and subcontracts. Is there anything within this and the way the framework will operate that would sort of, I don't know, mitigate against that level of subcontracting?
No, so the reason
I'm thinking about the management of what in the framework helps us to manage those contracts.
Right, so I have an M&E team, and which includes myself. The whole purpose of this framework is, as I said, to encourage smaller contractors to take on board. They're going to be specialist contractors. We're not expecting contractors to turn around and then be subcontracting multiple times. There's going to be a certain degree of subcontracting. So, for example, if we have to use a UKPM, they're going to have to go to that supply chain for that. But the sole aim of this is to make sure that we are focusing on those smaller contractors, so we can reduce the subcontracting angle of this, because we don't want that. Otherwise, we would have just simply appointed a Waits or a Mullallys or something like that. I don't know if that answered your question. Forgive me if not.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you. So for each lot, you have a first main ranked contractor who does the main repairs and maintenance, but then to keep the others interested, when you get upgrade funding or something, you then open that up again and don't automatically give it to the main
That's correct.
if I understand it. So what's the rough breakdown then of what is ongoing, regular, if you like, work? So out of that 80 million that the lead contractor will get, and then how much is classified as upgrade or new installations that everyone can then bid into? What's the split?
Right. So the majority, I would say the split is probably about 40-60. And the reason why I say that is because at this present moment, we actually have budgets for these lots already. That's in place, and hence the reason why you would probably realise that there is what we call an Appendix 1 that was in the document, but it's not for public domain. And the reason for that was that it broke down the actual work allocation that we currently use, budget allocation we actually use for these disciplines in the first instance, and then anything that is left over regarding that, we will then be assigned to capital works. A lot of these actual lots we don't do capital works. The reason why I wanted to include this is because we have systems that have been in place for many years, and at some point they need to be replaced. Hence the reason why we need, at this present moment, our focus is making sure that we continue with the servicing, repairs and maintenance, and that's why we will be going to our finance in order to make sure that if we have to do any upgrades in future years, we have the finance to do so. So the focus is going to be on reactive at this present moment in time, but we have inflated it slightly in terms of the 80 million because we want to make sure that there's some form of understanding upfront right now of what potentially we will have to spend in order to upgrade these systems to where they should be, because they've been in place for many years. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one question. You talked about insourcing earlier in your introduction, and I'm glad to hear the DLO will still have a full role. But I was just asking, in a £90 million contract, many of which will be split up into smaller bits, do we look at opportunities for maybe extending the role of the DLO in this?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So
will there be a possibility, delivering that as part of this contract?
Yeah, so what we want to do is that, as I said, the lots that are there at the moment, some of them there to support the DLO because they already do those works. However, I know for a fact that the DLO are looking to train under the air source heat pumps and heat recovery units. They want to do that type of work. So part of the initiative that we're going to introduce is to the contractors that are on site is to provide training for our DLO or opportunity for them to do that work. I'm going to be working closely with the DLO at all stages. I mean, they're going to be part of the procurement exercise of putting this together so that they are fully abreast of what opportunities are there for them. I am not here to reduce what the DLO do. The whole purpose of this framework is, one, to protect us and provide us with the resistance that we need, focus that we need in order to move towards the future, but that future includes the DLO, and that will never change. So absolutely, there will be opportunities for the DLO based on what they feel they can do for them to take on some of this work if they feel they're in a place to do so. But that starts with training. And that starts with bringing the right number of resources that's going to come in to allow them to do that. Growth is what's leading this.
Can I just follow up to that one? So that's great. Really looking forward to seeing that, particularly sort of moving into renewables and more sustainable heating systems. How will we monitor that training and that sort of shifting our DLO into this contract shifting these frameworks, shifting our staff into those new skills areas?
Right, so one of the initiatives we're looking at is for the contractors, any change in regulation, any training opportunity, part of their initiative is to do that for staff and DLO. So as we would do with any staff, in terms of development and in terms of setting up a matrix, this will be part of their social value commitment in order to ensure that part of that is also including training. We'll be working closely with the DLO for them to feed back to us when they feel they're in a position to start taking on some of this work. And here's the reason why I want them to be part of this procurement if this goes through from the very beginning. So they're not hearing about this once it's in place, but they're part of the same journey. So they fully understand and they can have an input as to when they think they are ready in order to take on such work and what are their training needs. I mean, it's not relying solely on the contractor to provide training, of course, but we're also looking to identify training themselves. For example, I'm already looking at providing training for my officers in terms of the solar panel. We've never looked after that ourselves. I've already identified whereby I've got 3 officers ready to go on that because regardless of what we appoint our contractors to do, we as council members or council employees have to make sure that we're able to track what the contractors are doing and make sure they're delivering what they said they're supposed to do under that contract.
Yeah, so it would be great to know what the monitoring sort of mechanism is to record that. So I'm sure Councillor Williams and myself are both extremely keen that we're developing those skills within Hackney. So is there a monitoring system so that we can say, now we have, great, they've now trained, 10 people to look after
we can have so in effect, at the present moment, in the ideal world, we'll have a management system, housing management system that we record all that. At this present moment, how I record it is normally on a matrix, a training matrix, and I'll be working with the DLO in order to develop that on their side. It's going to be a joint venture. It has to be because we're separate teams, but we're still together, if that makes sense. So until we have a housing management system, I can't sit here and tell you, oh, councillor, this is where it is and so forth, because we don't have one. So unfortunately, the only other way is manually, and that is going to be part of a training matrix. We will do that.
In our next annual report on our climate action implementation plan, I'm really hoping to be able to include something on this to say, you know, under this framework, we've managed to train this many people. So it'd be great to see a sort of feedback loop.
Councillor Winton.
Yeah, thank you. Very interesting conversation and an important question as well. And just an additional question around working with HR, given that they are developing an approach to training across the council. So just make sure that you're not working in isolation.
Oh, no, not
across the council. And then, as well as our climate change team wanting to keep track of how many staff are being trained, it's exactly the same for the work that we're doing via the Hackney Works on delivering green skills, not just within the council, but out with across the borough, to ensure that we are meeting our requirements in terms of upskilling across the borough.
Absolutely. So you all know, I've actually filled in the survey for development and learning that it's been going out, the equality survey as well. So I filled that up already, and I've already mentioned in there about upskilling new managers, for example, because new managers that are able to deliver this type of work is equally as essential as operatives on the ground working on these type of areas. So I'm totally in agreement with that.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right. Yes, so just a remark on that. I mean, I think that last discussion was very interesting and was, I think, quite significant. I mean, where we're going here is quite a lot of new areas and new skills, isn't it? And you wouldn't, you know, the DLO has been very much set up on, you know, on traditional basis. It does move with the times. I'm not saying it doesn't, but you know, we've got people who are plumbers and won't have ever worked with heat pumps, and you know, we're now taking on solar panels and things like that for the very first time. And it's really, you know, it's both the census, but a really big opportunity at this, but a possible challenge, isn't there? That we don't give up with it. So it's just, yeah, I was saying this really just to reinforce that the committee does see the significance and importance of this sort of area.
I agree. Thank you. I agree.
Right. Then, are there any other comments or questions? So can we then go to the recommendations, which are to establish the framework and secure the 3 specialist contractor as set out in the recommendations. Can I just say, regarding delegations, it's worth remarking that this committee is very jealous of its delegations, and it's not something we always look at seriously if we're going to give responsibility away like that. But we do recognise the importance of getting this work going in relation to our, you know, the issues that we're dealing with in housing repairs across the borough. Thank you very much for bringing the report and implementing it. So if we can agree the recommendations.
Agreed.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you all. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so if we'll move then to item 15, external fire safety remedial works. And I think Matthew Curran go to introduce.
Hello, good afternoon. Yeah, thank you for taking time to read the report and allowing me to present. So background to this fire safety remedial report, it's following the additional legislation that's been implemented from Building Safety Act and Fire Safety Remediation Act following Grenfell, additional requirements for duty holders such as Hackney to carry out assessments to external walls of our high-rise buildings and medium-rise buildings to assess the combustibility of the material. That's a new requirement where we've, over the last 2 or 3 years, done desktop studies to identify potentially risky buildings. The next stage now is to carry out assessments in line with PAD 9980, which is standard for external wall risk assessments. The funding, so following Grenfell, the Department of Levelling Up had provided a £5 billion funding scheme, Building Safety Fund, and additionally a £5 billion fund for the cladding safety scheme funded by developers via a levy. That's available for all duty holders, including Hackney Council, to carry out remediation of external walls that are combustible on high and medium-rise buildings. The proposed business case is looking to utilise that scheme. We've got roughly about 75 buildings where we've identified possible risk of combustibility, which totals circa £6 million in consultancy cost and £80 million in contractors' costs over the next 4 years. The funding scheme has a deadline of September 2029. As of the last 12 months, that was set by the new government. So there is time pressures in utilising this funding. I'm sure you'll all appreciate there are significant budget pressures at the moment, so utilising this funding is essential to deliver our service. One of the efficiencies we can make in this programme is to utilise some of the external wall utility works, such as scaffolding. We can carry out window replacement works, window repair works, whilst the scaffolding's up and funded by the funding scheme, which will create efficiencies in the capital programme and save indirect costs on that programme too. The proposed delivery model is to employ 2 consultants to carry out the initial assessments and then act as a client representative all the way through the project, which aligns with the golden thread of carrying out construction works on high-rise buildings. And then also to employ 3 principal contractors to deliver the works. There's circa 75-80 construction projects across high and medium rise buildings over 3 years. So it works out to be between 25 and 30 projects per contractor over 3 years. The competency framework is set up for building safety, so there's additional competencies required under the Building Safety Act, and that's how we're going to manage the contractors that apply for the framework, bid for the work, and we're going to create up a mini framework where we're able to tender competitively, which is a requirement with the funding to demonstrate that we've got value for money. Additionally, with the delivery model, if we weren't able to utilise this framework or the funding, we may have an increased risk of enforcement notice from the enforcing authorities. So the Building Safety Regulator and the London Fire Brigade and the HSE are able to put an enforcement notice on Hackney Council if we're not able to demonstrate that we've got a programme to deliver the essential fire safety works. Insourcing, so we've considered the insourcing element of it, and due to the specialist nature of the assessments, which are specialist competencies for individuals, insurances and standards to carry out PAS 9980 assessments. We haven't got that in-house yet, and to upskill and employ that resource would eat into the already very tight programme. So we are employing an external fire risk assessment manager that will manage the programme internally and carry out the sort of clerk of works role to manage the consultants, and then principal contractors equally. That's too high a risk of a delivery model for us to carry out internally. The DLO would not be able to carry that out. So similar to all the other capital works schemes, we'll employ either tier 1 contractors or external wall specialist contractors to deliver the construction works. Social value, we're looking to include a 15% evaluation weighting to this procurement for both the consultancy and contractors. We're hoping that that will use that as a stepping stone into providing additional resource in the future for capital works, where we can look into the community and upskill people of the local area. Framework contract term, we're looking at 4 years. Like I said earlier, the contracts, the funding deadline is September 2029. So we'll look at having an extended year past that to mitigate any sort of project creep or extended term scope. So we're looking at a 4-year running into the early part of 2030. That's probably a summary of the business case. Open for any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments?
I've got
Councillor Young.
to understand it a bit better. So I can see that you've got a principal designer role that you're looking to insource. which we always like here. Can you tell us a bit, apologies if everybody else knows this, but could you tell us a little bit more about what that role is and what that role would be doing sort of longer term, if that would be a permanent contract, rather than the others, which I'm assuming you sort the cladding out. They're contractors, they come and sort the fire safety things out, and they...
Yeah, so there's two principal designers now, just to add confusion to the construction industry. One is in line with the CDM regulations, which has been there since 2015, and there's additional competencies required for high-rise buildings. That is a hugely risky piece of work, and it requires delegated responsibility for the project, which the council won't have because we'll be outsourcing the design responsibilities to the contractors, to consultants. Therefore, the principal designer role for high-rise buildings will have to be outsourced to one of those two, whereas medium-rise buildings we can deliver internally. So we're looking to employ 3 CDM advisors and a principal designer within the new restructure for resident safety. So there's a bit of hybrid based on the height of the building, and that's legislative.
Makes sense.
Okay. Yes. I was just asking a bit more about insource. I don't know, it's insourcing, but is there a plan for the increase in insourcing? I think it's the easiest way to put it. And it's a similar question that we asked under the last item. And when we're in a situation where we recognise we do need to deliver the skills in-house. So just how are we going to go about doing that? Sorry.
Chair, forgive me, David Bonac, when I'm the category lead for construction and environment. Yes, we have, there is, I think it's mentioned in here, I thought it was mentioned in here, there is an overall paper across Steve Waddington's estate and to look at strategic insourcing for construction. This was related to particular external works and spandrel panels, and also because of the volume of work and the capacity to do it. But there is, and as an action, I can take it to bring an update to the next meeting. But I know that Steve has it on his agenda to bring an overall, such as the volume of spend.
That's really encouraging. Yeah. Okay. I suppose there's a question also about managing the contract like this, isn't there? You know, while there are obviously big risks in things that could go wrong in fire safety issues, and while we can outsize the authority for this, the responsibility is always going to be with the authority, and just how we make sure that because presumably it takes a slightly higher level of grip on what the contractor are doing. There may be some areas where there are less risk. I mean, I don't know whether I expressed that very well, but the questions about obviously the implicit dangers in fire safety management on how if it's being completely done by a contract or very largely done by contract, how we still maintain sufficient closeness to that we mitigate those risks.
So there's sort of layers to this. Additional competency requirements for principal contractors now, which weren't there before. So you have to demonstrate competency prior to carrying out your building safety application, and any of the sort of early stages of the REBA process. So stages 1 to 2, all the sort of design and planning part. So that increases the skill set. We've got consultant will be managing from Golden Thread. So the people that do the specification will also be monitoring and managing their on-site health and safety, the information at the back end of the programme, so that feeds back into the council for future management. So there'll be a client representative on that part, so that's a second layer of security. And we're also employing an external wall manager that will essentially act as a clerk of works, being on site and checking that what they said they're going to do, they have done, and that's the council's input into quality assurance.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful. I was also there was an issue that this is grant funded, this work, isn't it? And we've yet to secure the grant. Is that correct?
It is a case-by-case basis. The process is that the PAS 9980 assessment gets carried out and then it's tendered. The tendered sum gets requested funding, but the sort of research that we've done so far is that where the assessment recommends remediation, it's 99% eligible for funding. We haven't had one turned down. So that's the process. We have to go through the assessment part, then the funding application.
Sorry, that's why we need the fire consultants. They're the ones who formally make the application for the grant. We've explored the grant and the sources of the grant, but the fire consultants are the ones who actually submit the grant application and which then gets filled out.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, so what particular risks are there in there, and what the committee should be aware of? The fact we're in this sort of interim place at the moment.
There's immediate health and safety risks. So if there's combustible material on the external walls, depending on the severity and the combustibility, will range from a high to medium risk. If it requires remediation, you'll have a timeline. If we don't hit the timeline, you can have an enforcement action from the London Fire Brigade or the Building Safety Regulator. That can go into prosecution, and with the new Building Safety Act, there's named persons as well. So individuals can go to jail as well as collectively Hackney officers. So there's a significant risk of not doing it, as well as obviously the moral reason to reduce fire safety, which is I know commitment from Hackney and Labour.
Okay, so just go back to the finance. Thank you, yourself for the fine. So if we don't get, if we don't get the funding, what happens?
Like I mentioned earlier, we wouldn't get the funding if remediation wasn't required. So the sort of roadmap is very simple. If remediation is required, we'll get funding. If it's not required, we don't need to do the remediation works, and then that sort of conclusion of that project.
Sorry, yeah, I think in the very worst case, were Treasury to withdraw this money, which has been ring-fenced, then ultimately it might be a mess for the council, but under Treasury it has ring-fenced this money.
All right, okay, thank you. We'll note all that. Any other questions or comments?
No, thank you.
And so thank you very much for presenting the reports. If we can go to the recommendations on, which are to approve the framework. Well, I set out.
Agreed.
Agreed. And that includes, we just agreed the delegated power as discussed.
Yeah.
Noting that we do regard this as exceptional.
Yeah.
I understand the importance and urgency of the work. Okay then, thank you very much indeed. So if we move then to item 16, procurement of a design and build contract for 9 council housing development projects for our new homes programme. So I've got Jane, how you're going to, Christine McCarthy, you're going to introduce it. Who's going to do that first? You.
Christopher Garth.
Christopher Garth.
Chris, right, Christopher. My apologies.
That's all.
Afternoon, Chair and Councillors. So Chris and I are going to do a bit of a double act on this one. But as you set out, Chair, we are seeking authority to procure design and build contractors to deliver 9 of the new homes programme sites, and also seeking approval for delegated authority to enter into each of the build contracts. So if I just give you a little bit of a sort of background about what is the new homes programme and why are we doing it, and then Chris will go into a bit of detail about how we intend to do the procurement across these 9 sites. So the new homes programme is building on the success of the estate regeneration programme and the housing supply programmes that were set up by Hackney Council as an in-house not-for-profit house building programme. And responding to the significant housing crisis in Hackney. So the new homes programme has essentially been set up to be the sort of newest generation of council-led house building, and was set up following a rigorous review of assets on our housing estate land. So looking to identify suitable sites to build new housing, and aiming to make the best use of the council's resources delivering on brownfield sites. So we're building on predominantly things like garage sites and other infill sites across the housing estate. So the New Homes programme in its entirety aims to deliver 400 homes across 14 sites, of which 75% of those homes will be for social rent. And this forms part, the NHP forms part of the council's and the mayoral commitment to deliver 1,000 homes for social rent in the manifesto period. So NHP, the NHP as we call it, makes up about a third of those numbers. So the NHP, the New Homes programme, was approved by Cabinet in December 2022, and that enabled us to go ahead in terms of the pre-development work that we needed to do in terms of developing up those schemes, procuring design teams, planning consultants, multidisciplinary consultant, which includes a fire consultant, for example, cost consultants, et cetera, et cetera. And since that time, we've also, as well as working with 5 architect practices to develop up these designs, we've also been working with the GLA to secure affordable homes programme funding for the affordable homes. So both for the predominantly social rent, there are a few shared ownership homes in there as well. And we've been working quite hard with the GLA around negotiating a higher rate than we've previously been able to achieve, and that's partly in recognition of the real challenge that we have around delivering on some of these small sites and the abnormal costs that can be associated with those smaller sites, and I guess the lack of economies of scale, if you like, around small sites. So as it's set out in the report, what we're bringing forward now is what we refer to as tranche 1, which is the sort of first tranche, if you like, of sites, which is 9 sites. They're set out at section 3 and section 5.4. So Broadway, made up of Orwell and Welshbourne Regents, which is in Haggerston and London Fields wards, Crockley and Buckland in Hoxton West, Fellows and Weymouth in Haggerston, Morris Splits in Stoke Newington, and Nye Bevan and Blackwell Close in Kings Park. So those might be familiar to some of you if they're in your wards. So tranche 1 is essentially 305 of the 400 or so homes, of which 218 are for social rent, so that's 71%. There are a range of sizes in terms of the sites, from 9 terraced homes, for example, at Nye Bevan, through to around just over 120 homes at Broadway and Regents. It's perhaps worth mentioning that they're all under 18 metres, so in terms of the Building Safety Act, they are not categorised as high-risk buildings, and we've been, I guess, quite sort of thoughtful about that in terms of those designs. Tranche 2, which are other sites that some of you others may be more familiar with, we will come and talk to you about those in due course, but they're sort of slightly further behind. But the majority of those are social rent homes, balancing out the 75% social rent. So I've mentioned we're working with a number of different architect practices, many of which are SMEs, who are also supporting smaller design teams as well. The New Homes programme as a whole is a mix of 1, 2 and 3 bed homes, 10% of which are wheelchair accessible, so 10% across the programme. And each of the sites has been quite thoughtful about thinking about the improvements to public realm and landscaping as well, in terms of the wider estate in which we're doing these infills. A number of the schemes are passive house, and we are really looking to try and deliver low carbon, highly energy efficient homes. There is a complete move away from gas, as you might expect. So it was interesting to hear Denise talking about training for air source heat pumps, which is great. We've been working with that team as well around some of those conversations about what's coming forward in the programme. So yeah, and also thinking about sort of energy efficient homes in the context of trying to tackle fuel poverty and responding to Hackney's climate action plan. As well as sort of internal stakeholders, including colleagues in employment and skills and Hackney Works, in terms of thinking about local labour and apprenticeships. We've also been doing quite a lot of work with residents and local stakeholders on each of these schemes. A number of them we've been able to set up resident steering groups, which has been hugely helpful in terms of meeting with those residents on a regular basis, getting their feedback and working through those designs. We haven't been successful on all sites, unfortunately, with RSGs, but on a number of them we have. But as well as that, we've been having regular sort of wider engagement events to keep residents informed and up to date. So at the moment we've got 4 of the schemes in planning. They've been submitted to planning. The rest will be submitted in the coming months, 2 I think later on this month. And we are aiming for a start on site on many of these by spring 2026 or towards autumn 2026 for others, in order to meet both our manifesto commitments and also GLA commitments around funding. So I will hand over to Chris to talk through the delivery strategy on tranche 1.
Yeah, and I'll keep it to the high levels because it's a long report. We acknowledge that, 'cause it's kind of collects together a number of different projects in different areas. So just to give you the headlines then, so the total expected value across these 9 capital projects is in the region of 130 million. So that average is just below 15 million, but actually there's quite a large range. We're ranging from the largest scheme in the region of sort of high 30s down to just £4 million for the smallest scheme. And the breakdown is in an exempt appendix. Each contract is expected to have a duration between 18 months and 3 years, depending on its scale. That's the construction period. And there's a map of their locations and also a quick snapshot of the current design proposals in the appendices, so you can get a sense of exactly what these things look like and how they change the setting. I think in terms of procurement, the key thing we want to state is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach, and the approach we've taken here is by bringing together this 9, it allows us to see it in this strategic way, to try to find a tailored approach that best fits each situation. And obviously the backdrop, as we discussed when we last updated this committee in April on the 4 schemes that we're slightly further ahead of these, is that it has been a very turbulent period in construction and in the housing market, and continues to be, and there's some renewed uncertainty coming from the US tariff situation, which affects all of this, even though we might think we're quite separate to those issues. And so in order to get value for money and get these projects off the ground, we have to try and package them up and take them out of the market in the best way possible, and that's what this is about. So there's 3 key principles I just want to touch on without going into any level of detail. The first is we tried really hard to identify the right market, and what that means is, because we've got such a wide range of different sizes here, that we need to target the contractors that are going to be interested, they're going to offer us value for money, but they're also going to have the capabilities not just to build the quality and build it in the professional manner that we need, but also to keep our residents informed and act as responsible custodians of these building sites. So that's the first thing, find the right people, and you'll see we're doing that in a number of ways. The second thing is, as Jane said, we're moving here from an era of bigger estate regenerations into more and more smaller projects, and that becomes very resource intensive for us to manage. And so we are putting across a proposal here, which in some cases packages multiple sites together. And what that means is that we can try to drive greater interest by offering more opportunities, bigger contracts, but also driving some economies of scale from the council's buying power. We've got to balance that as well with the fact that we do want to maintain some opportunities for the SME market, and so you'll see that some of the items, some of the packages in the recommendation, at least one of them is a standalone, and a couple of the others are packaging of small sites together, so that we can still access that part of the construction market. And then the third key plank is we've all got a very proud record in the council of delivering new housing. We're proud of the quality, the sustainability, the safety levels that we've achieved. No Hackney Regen scheme has ever had to have cladding remediation, for example, certainly not in the modern era. And so we want to continue that, and we don't want to have a race to the bottom in response to this very challenging market. So the strategy we're putting across here, I think, allows us to secure the quality that we've achieved in the past, but also take it up a step. So Jane mentioned Passive House. That's really the kind of gold standard for energy efficiency, and we're committing to taking that out on several of these projects. The recommendations are as written, so we're proposing that these 9 projects come forward in 5 procedures. So there's four pairs of 2, and then there's a standalone 5th. We're using a combination of routes, so we're using the new competitive flexible procedure that comes out through the new Act. We're also using frameworks in 2 of the procedures and a dynamic market for another. And in terms of timing, which is the final point, with your agreement today, the first pre-qualification will launch this side of the summer holiday. We're proposing to launch the first tender proper in September, and that will allow us, with a fair wind and subject to pricing, to achieve the first start on site from March, which is committed both to the Mayor of London, but also internally. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions or comments from members? The Councillor Young first, and then
I've got 4 questions. Shall I just do them all? I'm slightly concerned my question is not really for this committee, but shoot me down if they aren't. The first one was about the sizes of the, really pleased this is happening, first of all, absolutely brilliant and amazing to see the proportion of social homes. First one's about the sizes of homes, just bearing in mind how rarely larger homes come up, and that those are the families who sit on the housing needs register for the longest. I just wondered whether there is scope to build some larger homes, because, you know, 3 bed isn't that big and do have larger homes. Second one is about shared ownership. So, I mean, we've got the percentages here, but just be interested to hear, you know, and we've got very little shared ownership here, but why have we got only, I suppose, is my question. Third is there, I know, I mean, I can see some of the estates here, there are quite some problems with the existing buildings, and I wonder whether there's anything within these projects that will also look to carry out some major planned works to the existing buildings, and I know we'll see that. And the fourth is just about biodiversity net gain, that if, you know, we're building on our infill sites, is there space there to get that biodiversity net gain without it just being green, like retain some actual green space?
Do you want to take the first one? I'll take the second one, and then we'll go from there.
Sorry.
Sure. I mean, at this stage, I think in terms of size, so are we building any more than 3 beds, any larger units other than 3 beds? And I think at this stage, I don't think that there are any homes that are larger than 3 beds within the program. And so that is, you know, that is a fair point, and I think that is something that we can take away. I think obviously it's a challenge because the larger the home, the more expensive it is to build, and the tariff rate that we get from the GLA is the same regardless of what size of home. But we can certainly take that away and have a look at that. And I think one thing I suppose I would like to mention is, I think we within our team are very keen to explore whether there are opportunities that this program will afford to support other teams with downsizing, with supporting residents to downsize, and whether that might actually free up some of those larger homes. So whilst that isn't sort of within the scope of this report, I think it's definitely something that we're quite interested in sort of working with our colleagues in the DART team to explore a bit, and housing strategy and policy to explore a little bit further. I know that's not the ideal answer at this stage, but yeah, and I think certainly in terms of the sort of future programs and also within other programs, not just the NHP, I think that larger home point we can certainly take away. It's certainly something that we were very thoughtful about at Tower Court in terms of that building within the Stamford Hill area, and yeah, so yes, that's noted. Thank you.
Yeah, so on shared ownership, I think the key point to note here is this program wasn't set up to deliver any shared ownership. The shared ownership that we've ended up with is opportunistic rather than planned from the start, and it's 32 new shared ownership units on one of the Hoxton sites. And it's worth mentioning that those are in addition to the 75% social rent. So they're not chipping into the social. And the reason we've done it, which probably sounds quite perverse, is that with the GLA grant that we bring in on shared ownership, which is less than on social, but it's still something, on that particular scheme, it's actually better financially for the council to flip what previously were 32 private sale flats into 32 shared ownership. So, you know, we're happy to say it's still a minimum 75% social, but there's something extra on top.
It's a gain, yeah.
And then the third and fourth points.
Yeah, so in terms of existing buildings, so that is, we are having really, really regular meetings, aren't we, with housing services colleagues around how can we make sure that any capital works that are happening within the housing estate is being done really thoughtfully in the context of what we're doing. And I think we are really conscious that we're sort of coming in and trying to build new homes on estates where there are some really challenging buildings, there are some really challenging sort of living conditions that people are in. So I think we're working really closely with housing services around prioritising stock condition surveys on estates where we know, because we're out speaking to people really regularly, we know, and we're hearing a lot of the issues that people are experiencing. So we're trying our best to make sure that stock condition surveys are prioritised. And similarly, we're trying our best to make sure that any capital spending within the housing estate is being done with the thought of what's happening on the regeneration side in mind. And also, I guess, ensuring that where things are timed, where that investment from our colleagues in housing services is planned, that the program, if you like, isn't clashing with the work that we're doing as well. If there's a kind of, logistics issue, if you like, on site, that we're not all trying to be in the same place at the same time, but where there are synergies, talking to them about it. And, there is a bit of a conversation beginning around whether or not we can sort of support with some of the works in terms of kind of project managing some of the works that we know that housing services will need to do. But I think that's still more of its infancy, if you like, in terms of that conversation. Yeah. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and I think it's so, the plan very much is that these are going to be, this is limited to new build delivery, what we're proposing here, because there isn't yet enough certainty to be able to say on the major work side what we could assist with. I think that's just a reality of the planning is a different process. But then on biodiversity net gain, I completely take your point. In some cases, once we build these projects, there isn't a huge amount of land left. So green roofs, that's a given, it's a planning policy thing. And the design teams really have been tasked with trying to maximise biodiversity and urban greening. And in some cases that means going outside the project boundary. So, we're looking at some streetscape works where you might introduce new rain gardens or new, planting, or even in the case of one of the projects at Haggerston, looking at making some improvements to the local park, which already exists. It's not like a park, it's more like it's a small garden. That then, is one of the benefits that existing people can gain from this project near them.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yes, Kennedy.
Thank you. Like Councillor Young, really welcome this. It's great and lovely to read. And absolutely right, Chair, that we get on with it. And so this committee will always support you in doing it. At pace and as fast as possible. And it's clearly the intention of the government at the moment as well, that these things are done as quickly and certainly more swiftly than they have been in the past. And there's enabling legislation, as I think somebody mentioned earlier, that will help us do that. We do have to be really mindful of what you were just talking about building something shiny and new next to something that's broken and not fit for purpose. And actually, when we were coming into this meeting, there was a resident, a distressed resident on the stairs, who just wanted to come into any public meeting that she could get into to say, I'm living in unacceptable damp and mould. And we must bear that in mind as we do these projects, that hand in hand with that. And there's a commitment to it in our housing improvement plan that we were looking at earlier, but that should be at the front of our minds as well. My final point is a question, Chair. I used to know, because the Director of Finance used to always remind us how much the average cost of us building a 2-bed had gone up, and it used to be it had gone up in 50% in 5 years, but he was talking about 2018 to 2023. So if we're having those wider strategic conversations, what's the ballpark for what it costs us as a local authority to build an average 2-bed?
Well, we reckon at the minute, the construction cost, I'm going to get this right, we reckon it's somewhere between 450 and 500,000 per unit to build.
On average.
Now, this is massively varies depending on where it is, what it is, exactly how it's arranged. And we think that inflation in the last year or two has been much more stable than it was in the period that you're referring to. But the prices haven't gone down.
Yeah.
And the point that I made around, Trump's tariffs and all of those connected issues means that there is a risk of a further period of inflation beginning again, and all the more reason to try and get these things out as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Okay, any other
No questions, only a comment on, Chair, excuse me, I know that I should be commenting on the entire paper, but I'm really incredibly grateful, particularly to see the plans for Hoxton West in there. And for every ward councillor, they are incredibly grateful for all of the work, because we know on the ground what the need is in our wards, and as cabinet lead members, we see the need across the entire borough. So I'd like to think that I'm speaking on behalf of my ward colleagues who aren't here today.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Again, if I could firstly reiterate my councillor colleagues' comments on importance and gratitude for seeing his work, which was good with pushing on with it. So thanks very much. As chair of the committee, I think I wouldn't be doing my job, governance is us sort of thing, to just talk about the nature of delegation here, because quite a lot of this is yet to be put into place. We're not quite sure. I think you're uncertain about some of the frameworks by the looks of it, still to be decided. And
yeah.
So there's some great schemes in here, and we've got some sound recommendations around social value and whether it goes with it. But how, as a committee, do we ensure that gets delivered if we just delegate everything right? Have we got plans to come back with a final report about what was actually done and how much it cost and which contracts went where and what the
I think we'd look to do something similar to the update we gave you. I think it was April's CPIC meeting. So it would be after the fact, it would be after the award.
I recognise I recognise the need to show the pace.
But it would be immediately afterward, as soon as.
So we're risking.
Yeah.
And then seeking to update you on the whole package of 9 rather than coming in dribs and drabs.
Yeah.
If it's, presumably it's helpful to see the full picture on something like this. So that, I think that would be in the early part of 26.
That sounds April 26.
It's worth saying as well, Chair, sorry, just
Won't be done by April 26.
Sorry.
Worth saying as well, we have intentionally kept the specific framework naming loose, partly because this was written 2 months ago. There's a lead-in time for a meeting like this. One of the packages of the 5-year, for example, we've done the expression of interest on. That closed on Friday, and we've had 12 interested contractors. We're therefore able to confirm, verbally that will be a framework called the Westworks DPS. It's actually a dynamic market, not a framework. So you take the point that, these things continue almost week on week, achieving progress, and we feel it aids fast delivery if we're able to reserve a certain amount outside of the explicit approval here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you all right with that?
Yeah,
Can I leave that with Amy to follow up and see that we do that in due course?
Look forward to seeing Lincoln Court in the future phase.
Yeah, we will come to the topping out and openings or whatever. Okay, then we can thank you very much indeed. That's great. Thank you. It's good to see you making progress on so many fronts here. If we can turn to the recommendation, which I think again go to quite a few pages. And we've already talked about the delegation.
Yeah.
Noting the exempt appendix, can we agree as set out in the report?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you again.
Thank you.
Right, so that brings us then to item 17, the asset management delivery framework. I think Neil Plummer is going to introduce this report. That's right.
Hi, yeah, thanks, Jeff.
Hi, welcome.
I'm Neil Plummer, the Capital Programme Manager in the Asset Management Delivery team that sits within Strategic Property Services. We are seeking to award a 4-year professional consultancy services framework with a total value of up to 10.5 million to procure specialist technical and multidisciplinary consultancy services associated with non-housing capital works. This initiative is part of the Council's corporate maintenance strategy, designed to supplement in-house capabilities for a substantial non-housing capital investment programme. The framework aims to streamline the procurement of services like architectural design, structural engineering, and quantity surveying, which are not available internally, thereby accelerating project delivery, ensuring quality, managing workload fluctuations, and achieving value for money. It will avoid paying fees associated with utilising external frameworks and reduce the time spent on internal procurement procedures of running open market competition. The decision to establish this framework follows a review of existing asset data and the approval of significant capital funding for remedial works across various property portfolios. The framework comprises 3 lots: architectural and engineering, multidisciplinary and building consultants, and there will be 4 suppliers in each. The procurement process was a restricted procedure with 2-stage evaluation, a selection questionnaire and an invitation to tender, and allowed a provision for smaller suppliers to form a consortium with other smaller suppliers to ensure that they could cover all of the requirements that we required. Bids were assessed on quality at 50%, sustainability and social value at 10%, and price at 40%, and prioritised strong social value commitments, including London living wage compliance, local employment, apprenticeships, and community engagement. Performance under the framework will be rigorously monitored by the Corporate Capital Project Delivery Team against key performance indicators covering cost, time, quality, environmental impact, and social value. Consideration was given to insourcing these services, but was rejected due to the way these services are required on a targeted, ad hoc basis, depending on the nature of the capital project in question and the specialisms required. For example, while similar, the skills required to refurbish a mortuary, for example, are very different to those to develop, say, a children's home. The intention is to retain a team of client-side project managers in-house to efficiently manage these services while utilising internal engineers and surveyors that are based in the wider asset management delivery team where possible and appropriate. The new framework will ensure environmental responsibility and social impact throughout its 4-year term. Consultants are obligated to comply with environmental legislation, minimise vehicle emissions, and actively address environmental issues through KPIs and PIs and call-off contracts. The framework requires suppliers to reduce the environmental impact of each project and demonstrate strong environmental performance. This commitment extends to procuring environmentally conscious consultants and ensuring their designs and operations align with the Council's sustainability goals. Beyond environmental considerations, the framework emphasises procuring for a better society and procuring fair delivery. This includes timely payments to sub-suppliers, promoting local employment, training, apprenticeships, and engaging local suppliers. London living wage compliance is a minimum requirement, and consultants are expected to improve public spaces, evidence inclusive policies for diversity, social inclusion, and lead community engagement. To address social value for call-off contracts awarded on 100% price, a system of commitments by the awarded suppliers has been created. The supplier will be required to offer a minimum of 5 social value points for every £50,000 of the call-off contract value. To address social value for smaller sub-30k contracts, a system of cumulative commitment by the award suppliers has been created. The point system allows consultants to choose from a range of activities, including career advice, local job creation, local economy support, and wider community assistance. The framework also ensures compliance with the Equality Act 2010, promoting accessibility and inclusivity in refurbished buildings. And that is the end of my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from members? Councillor Gallagher.
Could you differentiate for us what you class as urgent and what you class as business as usual? I'm looking particularly at page 313. 5.1.8. No, page 326. Sorry.
Without referring to the exact page, I mean, we utilize like a risk-based scoring system to identify what our priority 1 works all the way down to priority 5. So obviously a priority 1 score on our condition surveys would be relate to something that simply cannot wait. It has to be dealt with or plan put in place immediately for remedial works.
Okay.
Whereas down at number 5 on the risk score, for example, would be something like redecoration, depend on the nature of that redeck. Yeah.
The first one's urgent, and the second one of those is business as usual.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Can I just ask about the social value outcomes? And I saw this point system. Is this a standard industry thing, or is it? Was the first question, I think.
I don't believe it's a standard industry thing.
Because I'm scratching my head about how it might work and who decides about, whether they're going to have a site visit or an apprentice,
Yeah, it's not a standard industry thing. If I'm honest, we developed a system, and it will need, until sort of we get some projects going through it, it will need some, I think there'll be some learning there to work out exactly how it's going to be used. But ultimately it will be decided on the value of the contract.
I saw that, yeah, the contract's quite considerable, however you work it all out, isn't it? It just seemed a little bit imprecise. I'm sorry, I'm being a bit unfair, but who decides what we're going to get? Are we going to get an apprentice or not? Are we going to get 10 site visits or an apprentice?
Yeah. No,
sorry, Karen, you've got your hand up. Sorry, I can't see that. Yeah.
So with regards of whether or not we'll get an apprentice, it depends on how long the works will go on for. So if we've got a consultant who's going to be in a project for a year or a year and a half, they're more likely going to put an apprentice on, or have a conversation with the school, or do the larger social value items. If you've got a consultant who is on a project for a month, 2 months, they'll be smaller, and theirs will be cumulative. So each time they win a job over a certain period of time, would actually look at how many social value points they've actually accumulated together. And that's going to be managed by our project manager, who manages the contract as well. So it depends on the length of the contract and what we're using the consultant for. We've put this together in consultation with our procurement department. So it's also looking at how we've managed other contracts and how other framework consultants have put together their social value points as well. So that's how it's been put together, and that's how it will be managed going forward. But Neil's quite right. With this new contract, we will be looking at how it works very closely to see if it needs tweaking as we go along, and it will be reviewed yearly.
Chair, just to say that it is a model that others have used, particularly in the professions. The danger is the professions wriggle out of doing things, and it's where the greater social values. So the point about it was, and as Karen said, it's cumulative, so that the more people get, it's say, oh, well, we'll go on a school visit and an education visit, actually goes in, so that it relates to an effective proxy value.
Yeah, so all right. To get 50 points for so that they employ an apprentice, say, would be how much contract value is it? 5.
Anything over 50,000.
So you're talking 500,000, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, but they don't know if they're going to get any more work, do they?
Well, they do because they're bidding all the time.
It's after the event, isn't it?
Yeah.
It could be as a contract or cumulatively. The point about it was that, but they might be doing other things, not just apprentices. They might be employing local people or whatever and getting them into the professions.
Can I ask, Tim, have you got experience of this working anywhere else, or
it's a very difficult,
interesting idea? I'm sorry, I'm not necessarily saying it's being disparaging. I'm just curious of how it might work.
I think the challenge is because this is a framework. It's difficult to actually set what you're going to get from individual contractors. And I have to say, David is probably closer to it because he works directly with them in terms of this area of our work. I think what I can suggest to members is maybe we go back and look at this again in terms of how this will work in practice. And I'll probably give you a briefing note to have more information.
Okay, that'd be useful.
How it's going to work, because I think the fact that it's a framework and there's no guarantee of work. So it's only come up as and when the work is actually allocated to the consultant. So maybe actually looking at in practice examples of the work that will be allocated and how this scheme will work under those media competition would be a better way to actually, provide maybe some explanation or clarification on it. Would that be okay?
Okay, so we're saying we should proceed with the contract, go into contract, but we should just promote how it works in practice. And I suppose the detail is going to be, isn't it, to check how it did work at some point in the future, which is more important. Thank you. More important. Councillor Williams.
So if you're asking me on my most cynical day, I'll say that part of the issue is that we've had a procurement strategy that's been developed aside from the employment and skills team. We need an integrated approach that will speak to the realities of how that service actually works. And I'm experiencing this across a number of areas in my portfolio, especially with the employment skills and adult learning team. It's exactly the same. What I was just noting it down for post 60, preparing for adults, the education, education's work on preparing for adulthood. We have a strategy that has been developed outside of employment and skills without working together on how realistically we can deliver on the outcomes. The Central London Forward have done some work previously on how you can use your procurement strategy to deliver the outcomes that you want. Now, I'd love for us to be able to delve a little bit deeper into that, so that we can leverage the results that we want for employment and skills in the way that we are set up within the council to do it. I just think fundamentally there's some work that we have to go back and do.
Yeah, and I think Councillor Williams, right? I think we talked about it, Councillor Chapman, in terms of doing this more coordinated work between procurement, employment skills, and adult learning. And happening work to see how we have a joint up approach to delivering social value. But I think this is quite a unique case because obviously the framework of consultants we are looking to let here and the nature of the work, they're actually quite small values. 30K, 50K. It's really very difficult to pin down, delivery of social value for those small type of work. But as Carol said, if, for example, we are awarding 18-month contract, £500,000 to a consultant, then you can actually keep them for. But in terms of how this point system is going to work, like I said, Chair, we need to take it back and look at how this will actually apply in practice and do a briefing note back to members so that there can be some explanation about how this is going to work.
So there's a few things there. So we should do that. I'm looking at the officers and the tiny pictures on the screen, but I think that's all right. No one said anything. pick up a more strategic point there that Councillor Williams has raised about the implementation of the various council strategies, basically. I think probably above you have to get something to pick up. And we pick up as part of implementation of a new procurement and insourcing strategy. And third thing was to make a commitment to come back and have a look at how things work. And I fully take your point as well. I mean, what we're trying, this is not a way of avoiding doing social value here. This is a way of trying to capture it that we wouldn't get anyway because of the nature of call-off contracts and small ones. So that's fine. So, okay. So we all have, is that a reasonable summary of where we got to that discussion? Yeah. Any other points or comments from members? So, sorry. Oh, hands up all over the place. I can't, unfortunately, that was the technology of my eyesight. Yeah. Someone else, Natalia? I don't know who was first. Oh, it says yes, it tells me. Natalia was first.
Yes, hello. My name is Natalia Franzuzova. I am procurement category manager for this contract. I just want to point out that the system that we are discussing was developed specifically for the direct award contract, when we cannot ask suppliers specifically for some social value in advance and have discussion with suppliers because the work is urgent. For normal mini competition contract, we will discuss and ask for social value specific for the contract we are procuring via mini competition, and will assess the supplier's offers, and they won't need to do it by this table. The offers may be different, but we will assess them during our quality assessment and evaluation. So call-off contracts will be procured normally, like we procure all other contracts in the council. That's it.
So that's what I was saying earlier, that it will be good to provide a briefing note that is kind of clarifying.
Thank you, that's helpful. And then lastly, Neil Plummer. Neil, again.
Yeah, so it's just a small point really, but what we are noticing on the actual consultant side, professional consultant side, the ones that this framework is about, we are starting to notice that they do actually have dedicated social value coordinators within their teams, which like I say, it just sort of gives a bit more comfort that it's more than just sort of lip service. It is actually something that we're really sort of working towards, really.
Okay, that's useful and helpful as well. Thank you. So that's right, we'll do. Okay, then if we can move to recommendations set out in the report to approve the awards to the range of bidders. So noting in that, doing that, the exempt appendix. We're happy with that, agreed?
Agreed.
Right, so okay, we've got one more substantive item 20, which is confidential. So if I can first of all move that the press and public be excluded from Cabinet Procurement Committee during the consideration of exempt items. Well, it'd be number 20 now, won't it? Because those, is it item 20? Yeah. The exempt appendices we've got already. Right, 20 and not, oh, never mind. Yeah. Yeah, ignoring the exempt appendices. Right, so if I go.
So it's the report.
On the agenda, on the grounds it's likely that in view of the nature of the business to be transacted, that were members to be present, there will be disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972 as amended. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, so item. Oh, we've got to wait for the live stream to stop.
Yeah, that's just
okay.
Document as well.
Two things.
I've got to bring it to my.
Yeah.
So I've got no.
Sure.
But you see, it's
Not item 20.
not.
It's exempt papers.
So these are all.
Yeah, let's explain.
Okay. Now I've got it open here.
Sorry, can we stop live streaming, please?
Got questions?